Okay, to get started, this video series is going to walk through the different methods and tools and software and hardware requirements, basically everything that you need to get up and running with a software-defined radio to monitor radio transmissions for scanning purposes and all kinds of other fun stuff that it opens the doors for. And to start out, I have a virtual machine running on my machine here, which is running Windows 7. My main computer is running Windows 10, but I know a lot of people probably have not updated to that, and Windows 7 is still a very good choice, and I'm sure a lot of people are still running that. So that's what we'll be running this all in. All of this should be applicable to any of the later versions, 8.1, 10, so on. So let me go ahead and run through what we're looking at here. So this is just the desktop on the VM, and I've got some software downloaded, and we'll just run down the list. Have virtual audio cable, have a SDR Sharp, the DSD Plus public version, which you can download from their website, and then also I have the DSD Plus fast lane. This is a version 92. By the time you watch this, there may be a later version, but I imagine the steps will be very similar to how you get everything up and running from there on out. So we'll walk through that, and we'll show you some of the tools that are available in that are not available, at least right now, in the public builds. I'm sure they will be soon. So if you don't want to pay the money to get the fast lane access, then patience, and you should have access to it before too long. So what we're going to do is we're going to get everything set up and installed, and then we'll walk through getting the software-defined radio, the RTL device, plugged in and the correct drivers installed. And so this is going to be from scratch everything. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll start here with virtual audio cable, and we'll just go ahead and extract that to the desktop here, and we'll run the setup. Should be smart enough to know that this is a 64-bit and to run the 64-bit. Maybe it wasn't and I didn't catch it. Let's try it again. There we go. So we'll continue through. Accept. Well, let's see what that is just in case. We'll trust it. Alright, so that's installed. So we'll close that for now. The other one did try to launch, but we won't do it again. Now let's get SDR installed. So same thing, we'll extract that. Go into the SDR folder. Run the batch file. Shouldn't take too long to download. If it does, I'll skip through. Okay, so that's done. Close that. Same with DSD Plus. Now I'm going to leave this window open and open the fast lane builds. Notice there's not every file that comes in the standard build, only what's changed. So we'll grab those, put them over here. We want it to go ahead and replace everything, and we're done with that. So we are done with all these zip files. We can get rid of those. So first things first, let's check our virtual audio cable. As administrator, try that one more time. There we go. We now have two. So I can go ahead and close that out of the control panel. Should not have to mess with that pretty much ever again. Okay, so now for the SDR install. Now it installed it into this SDR Sharp folder. So just out of ease, I'm going to drag that to the desktop, And I don't need the virtual audio cable installer folder either, so I'm going to get rid of those. So now we'll just be working out of these two folders. So I'm going to open up the SDR Sharp folder, and down at the bottom there's a utility that it downloaded called ZADIG. I'm not sure how you pronounce that, I'm not going to try. So I'm not going to run that yet. What I'm going to go ahead and recommend that you do if you're following along is to plug in your RTL SDR device. And so I'm going to mimic doing that by telling it to grab one of mine. So I have just plugged in. It did not find the drivers, which is fine by me. That makes life easier for us. So once that's plugged in, I will run the tool. Okay, so now we've got that installed. Now what we'll do is we're going to fire up SDR Sharp and we're going to run through getting it calibrated. So I've got SDR Sharp open here. This is again just a vanilla install of it. No extra anything. So let's go ahead and hit the settings button. Oops. First, let's change this to RTL SDR, depending on what kind of device you have. If you bought the cheap one off Amazon, this will be the one you choose. Now we'll go ahead and configure it. And generic, that's fine. I typically run mine at 2.048 million samples per second. And right now, I'm going to go ahead and turn the RF gain up to just somewhere around 30. Not going to worry about frequency correction yet because we don't know what it is, and that's what we're here to find out. So we'll go ahead and close that, and we will tell it to start. And you notice we've got static, and it threw us right in the middle of the FM band, so I can see some FM stations here. So if I were to click on them, okay, so as you can see, it threw us in the middle of the FM band, and that's really not helpful for finding the parts per million offset. So what I'm going to do is let's go look up on radio reference. Let's go find a nice control channel, and we'll tell it to tune to that, and we'll see how far off we are. So I'm in Houston, so we'll take a project 25, and one I pick up very well is the Tomball site. So I want that 774.45625. That was my bad. So I believe this particular dongle is plus 88. So, no, this is my 68 dongle. So right there in the middle, and we can zoom in on it, get a little bit closer look. One of the other things we can turn on is the zoom FFT, and you can see we've got a nice spike right in the middle there. So that is how you find your RTL SDR offset. And just a few other ththings about SDR Sharp. When you're looking here, you see I've got quite a bit of what looks like a DC offset here. So you can mess with that to help make things easier to spot by changing your range. When you do that, that does affect your waterfall display. So now you've got some nice deep blues in here. One of the other things that I just noticed is I'm still on wide band FM, so we're not really hearing the typical P25 control channel. When I change it to narrow band, I can see that not only that, but it looks like my receiver has heated up a little bit. So we're gonna bump this back up a little bit more. I'm gonna go ahead and stop that because that is a terrible sound. So NFM, squelch is on. Snap to grid I usually leave at 1 Hertz just so I can pretty much click anywhere to center different things. So if I wanted to center on this guy, I could, or I can find the middle of that and tune it again. But we're going to turn that off again just to save our ears. And so with just this setup, we'll go into using the non-fast lane version of DSD Plus. So earlier we set up our virtual audio cables, and basically all that did was create a virtual input that we can pipe audio to, and then also from another program listen to that audio that we've told to go there. And the way we do that is right here in SDR Sharp. There's the audio output, and you noticed earlier I unticked this filter audio option, and that is because if you filter that audio and you try to send it to, say, DSD Plus, it's not going to be able to decode anything. So we'll leave that unchecked. We're going to go ahead and change this now to line 1 on virtual audio cable, and we'll minimize this, minimize that, and let's bring up the DSD Plus window. So just out of ease, I'm going to bring up a command prompt, and I'm going to go to my desktop, then the DSD Plus folder, and I'm going to type DSD Plus and just run the executable flat out, and we'll watch what it does. So you notice when we launched it, it gave us a little bit of an output, and what it did also was list all of our input devices, all of our output devices, and then it told us which ones of those it actually chose to use. So we can see that right now it's DSD is listening on input device number 1, which is the microphone, which nothing's plugged into right now. So actually, because this is a virtual machine, I think it's plugged into my voice, which is why I can see that moving. But you see, the one that we do want is line 1 of our virtual audio cable. Now, audio output shows the default speakers, which we can leave that at the default. More than likely, that is what you already have your set to on your computer, is to output to your speakers. So we won't be worrying too much about that. So we're going to escape out of that for right now. And just for the sake of showing you where this information is located, I'm going to open up, I'm going to go ahead and sort this by file type and get all the text files next to each other. So if I open up the main DSD Plus text file, I can see what all the different parameters are that I can specify when I want to run DSD Plus. But I'm going to focus on these at the top. So our input-output options. The only one that we're going to concern ourselves with right now is the input option, the -I. So I can see right here that line 1 virtual audio cable is number 2, so I'm going to do a -I and the number 2, and so that will launch DSD Plus with the virtual audio cable line 1 as its input. And if I come back to SDR Sharp and hit play again, then I can see that nothing is happening. Okay, at this point, I'm going to switch over to my main computer. I wanted to use the VM to show y'all how to get everything set up and working and functioning properly on a fresh install. And that's really the only good thing that the virtual machine is for, because if we try to run the actual decoding and everything else on the virtual machine, it just can't keep up with it. So we're gonna switch over to my main computer here. So I'm gonna go ahead and disconnect. So now what we're gonna do is I'm going to bring up my live DSD install. And I'll put it over here so you can actually see it. So we're going to go to DSD Plus. And now that I'm on Windows 10, I'm going to use a handy little shortcut here for Open Command Prompt. And that opens me a nice command prompt right in where I was. And we'll go ahead and get SDR Sharp fired back up on this machine. And we'll make sure that we're using the right dongle and that sort of thing. Okay, so I have SDR Sharp open over here. Got RTL SDR selected. I want narrowband FM, snap to 1 Hz. I still have my line 1 virtual audio cable selected as the output. And I'm going to choose device 0, which should be a plus 68, but we shall give that a try and see where we are. And let's see where we're at. We are close. So let's zoom in on that a bit. So yeah, we're close. We're not quite there yet though. So and this probably will change again as this heats up, but we'll bring it back down a little bit for right now. So I've got SDR Sharp running. I've got it tuned to a control channel. I've got it outputting to my line 1 virtual audio cable, which on this computer, we will run it real quick and just tell it to shut back down. And I can see, most confusingly, line 1 virtual audio cable is an input number 4. So input number 4, let's see what we got. And look at that, we've got our P25 control channel going. Now at this time, DSD does not do trunk following on P25 systems. So what we can do is I'm going to go ahead and run another system that I already have set up and configured, and it's an NXDN system that does trunking. And we'll just take a look and watch that as it happens. So I'm going to kill this one. I'm going to pull in. Actually, let me stop SDR Sharp. Close that out. So let's fire up DSD Plus in trunking mode. So I'm gonna. So this is the system we were just listening to, and so I'm gonna rem that. Put this one back in play. So we were sitting at about a 66 right now. Last I looked, when we were in SDR Sharp. So we want device 1. 66 parts per million. That's the control channel frequency. And let's do this. FMPCC. can't tell it, but I can, that we tuned a little bit. We shifted it a little bit too much, so let's fix that. Let's bring it back down a couple notches. See how much better that is. It's a little better, but we're not quite there yet. Bring it down 2 more notches. Okay, that is much better. So if we can see here, the white in the background is a zoomed out view of the spectrum of the area that you're monitoring, and you can barely see it in the bandwidth indicator there, but there is a spike right there that goes up to about right here on these blue ticked graphs. And then this green line is actually a zoomed in version of it. So like when we turned on the zoom FFT on SDR Sharp, that's exactly what's going on here. And I can see the center of the green spike here is pretty much right dab in the middle of our bandwidth indicators here. So one of the other things to note here is in the control channel file for the fast lane release of DSD Plus is this option right here. So if we were to go look in the manual of DSD Plus, we would see a text file for these FMP batch files. So if we open those up, it'll tell us exactly what all these different options mean. And FMP was introduced a couple builds back, but the real interesting stuff is going to be for the trunking. So we'll open that up. And even in here it talks about if you really want to know what FMP is doing, read the FMP files. But we're going to be looking at our... Okay, so I'll just tell you what it means. So if we look in our FMP-CC bet, we see that it's calling the FMP program, and then this is actually a port number, and so this is just an arbitrary port number. It doesn't really matter. The default for the control channel is 20,001. The default for the voice channel is 20,002. The next line is which RTL SDR device do you want to use for the control channel? So I have 2 plugged into this system. So for the control channel, just out of convenience, I choose 1. And then you put in your parts per million correction, which is still going strong. Looks like it's shifting a tad bit as it heats up, which is to be expected. So I can actually fix that since I'm in here for right now to account for it. And it continues to drift back there. Look at that. Look at that chip heat up. So I'm going to put it at what I know it should normally settle around, which is about 67 or 68, just because it will continue to drift as it warms up, which hopefully in a future release they will adopt something that Unitrunker does. Unitrunker actually has an option for drift following, which I believe actually adjusts the PPM fix. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this in the background here, and because it's heated up, I'm going to save that and then relaunch it immediately so that it doesn't cool back down. And we can see, yep, with a 67 parts per million fix, we're right back in the middle again. And then of course this last option is the frequency that you want to settle on. So now that that's running, I'm going to minimize this window. And actually going to minimize both of these because I know my chip should no longer drift anymore, so I don't need to see this anymore. Now I'm going to fire up the actual control channel badge, which if you see here, this right here is a new option for the Fastlane DSD Plus. The dash RC basically tells you that this is going to be a trunked control channel, and that this is the source of the information that's going to be used by DSD Plus to tune our other RTL SDR device to the proper voice channel. And the next line shows an input of 20,001. The dash V3, I believe, is a verbose logging output. If that's not correct, I will correct myself in the video. And these last lines are basically window positions, and I'll show you the different windows that pop up when we launch this. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to launch the cc.bat, and sure enough, we've got an NXDN 48 system. I've got the trunk data going. I saw a couple calls come through there a minute ago. So let me pull this window over, because this is probably the most interesting window out of all of it. And that's what actually helps show you what calls are coming in, what the source radio ID is, what the target talk group is. If you've already have everything set up like I do, when you first run this, it knows how many channels there are because of the control channel information as it says calls are put on there. So I can see that channel 5 is the control channel that we're sitting on. We've seen calls come in to channel 1 and channel 4, but right now we don't see channel 2 or channel 3. Now this particular system, and I don't know if this is a NXDN standard or not, as calls come in, it just does a round robin type of setup for the voice channels. If a call came in on channel 1 last time, it's going to come in on channel 2 the next time. If a call came in on channel 2 and then a new call comes in, it picks 3, and then so it goes 1 2 3 4, and then channel 5 is a control channel, so then it starts back over 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4. And as I was saying, the transmit frequencies for the voice channels are not in there by default. These have to be defined in a special file, and where you do that is called DSDPlus.frequencies. So that would be this file right here. So I'm gonna open that up in Notepad++, and bring it over for you to see. So I've got this system in here. So I have the control channel in here as well. I don't think it's really necessary to have that in there, but just because I can, I'd put it in there. So up at the top you can see, okay, what protocol, what network ID. The network ID was found on, well, it can be found on radio reference. It can also be found in this window. If we look down here, I see site L283, so that's network 283-1, site 1, then the channel, and then you actually have different transmit and receive frequencies because of the way this is set up. Just put those as the same, and then you can actually specify a sort order. If you put that sort order as 0, it actually, as it says right here, uses the channel number, so 1 2 3 4 5. You can see I actually have these in a weird order, 1 3 2 4 5. It doesn't matter, it knows which one's right because it's using the actual numbers. So that's where it's getting this information from. Now where it gets these top group aliases and source aliases from is actually a different file called DSD groups. And if I open that in Notepad++, I can see I've got a whole ton of these from where I was monitoring some different systems, but we'll scroll down to the interesting bits that actually pertain to this system. So here it is. So I've got NextEdge, the 283. Here's their talk group number. here's your priority. So you can actually set it so because you're consistently monitoring the control channel, what's really awesome about this is you will always see what calls are going on no matter what. If you have two of these devices set up, one for the control channel, one for the voice channel. So the way that DSD Plus picks what you're actually going to hear out of your speakers is by using these priority numbers. The lower the number, the higher they are in the priority. So I have a talk group here that's at a 75. I have one here that's 45. The default is 50. So say that there's a call that came in and there's only one call going on, and it happens to be this talk group 1109 and it has a priority of 75. If any of these other talk groups begin talking on a different channel, because they're all 50, which is a lower number than 75, it will automatically switch the voice channel to one of those, to whichever talk group came in. Now, if you have multiple talk groups that are talking at the same time, the first person there is the winner. It'll sit on that one until it sees the call drop off or it sees a lower priority number come in, and then it will again tune to that one over the other one. So that's where it gets the talk group aliases from. I actually don't have any of these set up. Where I would actually put the name in is right here, where these double quotes with nothing in them are. But as you see, I do have a bunch of aliases for the actual radios that are talking. Now, that is yet again another file, and that is dsdplus.radios. So if I open that in here, again, I have a ton of aliases that I have not begun marking on. These are all from a very large P25 system that's used here around the city of Houston. And so you can see these numbers here. These are all over the place. These are actually hit counts, how many times I've seen that particular radio key up and talk. But we're going to skip all this and get down to our next edge system. And we can see that all these are populated. And the good thing, and the only reason that those are populated is because these tags are actually included in this data stream on the control or on the voice channel. When they're talking, they transmit their alias. And DSD Plus is smart enough to be able to take those and populate that into this file automatically. Now, that's not to say that you can't come in later and edit it. And one thing I do not know is whether DSD Plus will overwrite any custom changes that you've made to it. I would hope not, but it very well may. And so you can see that this particular system is used a lot by towing companies. And most of these are unencrypted in the clear. There are a couple of encrypted talk groups on here. All these unit guys right here, these have always been encrypted. I have not heard any traffic on them unencrypted. Same with these IR units. So you can see it's seen quite a bit, and like I said, mostly towing companies that use this system. And so let's take this one step further, and let's listen in on a little bit of the voice traffic on this system. So first things first, I'm going to check this guy out. Okay, I already used my first RTL device on the control channel, so I'm using device 2. The plus 88, plus 87 was the other dongle, so I'm going to put this one down to 68. Now, there was a feature introduced with this, of course, to actually follow the voice, and there was a button that the manual says that you have to hit to enable the voice following, and you would normally run this and hit the V key on your keyboard, and it would go into the voice following mode. But another part of the manual states that if you put the starting frequency here of all nines all the way through, that tells the program that you actually want to start that from the get-go. So we're going to leave that on there. I'm going to save this, and I'm going to run that batch file. And so it came up. I'm going to pull this over. It's not going to show anything right now because it hasn't actually tuned anything. And then on top of that, we're going to run the, oh, see, so I see a call came in and we see it tuned, and I see that it's not really tuned where that is yet. So we're going to let that warm up for a little bit, and I'm going to cut forward as soon as it warms up enough so that we can listen in on the audio. Okay, there we are, and we see that we've got the zoomed in arc pretty well within the bandwidth boundaries there. Got a lot of activity tonight on this system. So let's go ahead, and now that we have our tuner fired up, we're going to launch the voice channel bat, which actually will do the decoding. So I'm going to pull this over. Didn't mean to click on that. Oh, I hit another system there, as you can see. Okay, so I'm going to pull this over too, because this also will tell us who happens to be talking at the moment. There we go. So as you can see, that this took a second or two to populate, even though he had been talking for a second or two. But because I already had his alias up here, this pulls directly from that file. I believe this still pulls directly from the voice channel. So you can keep that up and this up and watch it, see how it compares to before. But you see, I've still got a nice good stream going on my control channel here. I'm gonna make that a little bit smaller. Maybe bring it out to there. And then so on my voice channel, because nobody's talking, I don't see anything scrolling right now. And there we go. Oh, so I actually just watched that one change from an old alias to a new one. That's news to me. So to me, that does say that it will overwrite any changes that you put in there if it sees something else other than what the voice channel is saying. And you can see it every once in a while on here. You'll see this many radio records loaded or saved or anything. So again, this is the control channel log, so I can come back up here and see who was talking on what channel for how long. And then I've got the voice channel control log here. So I've actually got the IR units talking. Again, I already mentioned they were encrypted. I had them at a priority 99 because they are encrypted. So I can't listen to them anyway, so I'd rather hear the other audio, so it stays on these 50s even though they were talking first. And one of the things I can go ahead and do so that I don't have to listen to all that gobbledygook encrypted is if I hit the E key while I'm in the voice control log window, I can see that I can turn on auto muting of the encrypted voice. So if it tunes to the channel and sees they're encrypted, it mutes it. I don't have to listen to it. As soon as somebody else starts talking that is not encrypted, it will unmute itself and I can listen to it. And so that's how you get the newer DSD Pluses set up to actually do trunking. But so let's go ahead and we're gonna stop all these. So I'm gonna go in the reverse order that I launched them. The order that I launched them was the FMP control channel, and then the control channel, then the FMP voice channel, and then the voice channel. So I'm gonna do the exact opposite. I'm gonna kill the voice channel, and then tell it to stop. And then I'm going to come to the control channel activity window, which is also this one here. I'm going to tell it to stop. And finally, I'm going to stop the FMP control channel. So now nothing is using my RTL SDR sticks, but we're going to go ahead and open up a Unitrunker. And so I actually have a discriminator tapped radio, but I also have both of my RTL devices set up in here. So we're going to walk through how to set the RTLs up. So let's pretend that I didn't have these set up. So if I hit the plus button on here, I can see that one of the options that I have is the RTL 2832. And if I click on that, the window that I get shows RTL to 2832U. It's got a RTOT model in it. One of the things I'm going to go ahead and straight away change is this 3 VCOs. I'm going to change that to 1. I'm going to put my sample rate up at my normal 2.048. Let's see, so right here next to RTL device, I see I've got 2 of them in here, so I'm going to choose the first one. We've already figured out what the correction is for this one, so that's 68. But one of the things that's good about Unitrunker is it has this drift correct, so those temperature swings, we can actually try to correct for those. I'm going to leave the baseband auto gain control on, and I'm also going to turn the normal auto gain control on as well. So I'm actually going to delete this one because I already have these both set up, so I can see here this is the same thing that I had done already. Got 68 as the correction, 1 VCO, that's fine. So that's all good for that. I'm actually going to be using this one for my voice control, my voice channel, so I'm going to leave that one alone and come back into my first one. And so that's got same setup, same sample rate, all that turned on. This one has a slightly different per million correction. But if I come into here, sorry, I got those backwards. So if I come into VCO now, and I want to use this one for my control channel. Pull this down so you can see everything on here. So I set my roll to signal. I don't care about outputting the audio because this is control channel data. All you'd hear is that weird machine sounding noise anyway. So my park channel is going to be my control channel, so 774.45625 from earlier. We are in FM mode. Make sure that P25 is checked. And then down here as well under signal, because again this is a signal type, we're going to make sure that APC out of P25 is on. I don't care about logging at this time, so we'll leave that off. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play. I can see I'm already decoding. There's my system right there. And I can go ahead and close that now that I'm decoding already. Okay, so now let's talk about the voice channel. So this is going to be very similar to how we originally set up SDR Sharp to pipe audio to DSD Plus. So get the RTL SDR device set up just like before. Choose the right device, set the PPMs, turn on your drift correct, turn on your gains. We don't have to worry about our center frequency right now because the control channel is actually going to tell that what to be. But so we'll go ahead and click on VCO, and our role here is going to be voice. My this is where things get a little bit tricky, but not too bad. You have audio output and you have digital output. If this was an analog system that didn't really need to be decoded, we could keep audio output and just put it to our speakers. But because we need to utilize DSD Plus to demodulate the P25 signal, we tell it to go ahead and spit out. We could choose line 1 if we wanted to. In this instance, I told it to use line 2 of my virtual audio cable. Now my park frequency here, it's good to keep the tuner basically in the middle of all your voice channels that it's going to be tuned to. So you set the park channel to something that's not really used, that the tuner can just go and sit on and be ready to actually tune to the real ones. And if you keep it close enough to the real channels, you won't have that big of a delay as it is being controlled by the control channel. And once again, just make sure P25 is checked on here. These shouldn't matter because this is a voice option. So before I hit play, I'm going to pull back up my DSD Plus folder, and out of ease I'm going to open my command prompt, and I'm going to run DSD Plus again and then immediately escape out of it. So I was looking for line 2 virtual audio cable, which is device number 2. So I'm just going to tell that to go ahead and bring an input on that. See, it's using line 2. It's going to be playing to my speakers. We're all good there. So now I can actually go ahead and hit play. So I can close that out. And I can, let me pull the interesting bits over here of DSD Plus. And so I can see DSD Plus decoding the audio. I can see what's going on in the control channel in Unitrunker. And this is something that you can do without the fast lane things. DSD Plus by itself is able to do this, as I'm sure you know. The fast lane builds just give you the advantage of not having to use multiple programs when you're listening to certain types of trunked audio. But like I said, as of right now, DSD Plus cannot trunk follow P25. Hopefully that is coming soon. But this is a more than capable setup right here, listening in with Unitrunker and then piping the audio into DSD Plus. So let me show you, we were talking about the park channel earlier. So you can actually see, here's the audio signal when it's actually decoding, and then you can see it go really scratchy there when nobody's talking and it's not tuned to anything. And the reason that it's doing that is because it's switching back to that park channel that doesn't have anything on it, so all it has is static. But because we're piping that to DSD, DSD just ignores that, and you don't hear any static. So I hope you found this tutorial informative. And I know I had to skip around there for a little bit, and I actually did not run through installing Unitrunker like I did the other things. But I did want to go ahead and show the P25 decoding aspect. This is one of the things that I have noticed on using this setup is I do get a lot of audio distortion through Unitrunker and piping it to DSD Plus for the decodes. If I was to actually just through DSD Plus or even SD Sharp, if I was to tune to one of these voice channel frequencies and just sit on it and leave DSD Plus running, I get pretty flawless decodes on the audio. But for whatever reason, even when it's a continuous audio stream where the person is talking, I get a lot of distortion at the beginning and ends of the transmissions. And I don't know if that's Unitrunker going ahead and telling it to switch back to the park frequency too early, if that's actually causing DSD to get a little confused or not. But hopefully, between everyone, we can get that worked out and figure out what the decode problems there are. But for the most part, it's pretty intelligible audio, and it's not too bad to get all this set up once you know what everything really is doing in the background. And again, this is such a high level overview of what everything does that you really have to go in and read through those files and try to understand the theory of what's going on, because when you just follow these tutorials and do things because I or somebody else tell you to, and you don't really understand what's going on, then when you run into problems later, it's really hard to figure that out. Whereas if you just sit and play with it, tinker with it, try the different options, learn what this and that does, it becomes a whole lot easier for you to troubleshoot. It becomes a whole lot easier for you to explain to other people what you are trying to accomplish, how you thought something was going to behave, what you did, and all that is very useful when trying to troubleshoot something with somebody. So again, I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it's pretty long-winded, but hopefully I'll get that edited down, and I'll see you next time.